The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 43 different species sat in their floating chairs, each one showing signs of fear and desperation. The massive chamber could hold thousands, but today it felt too small for the weight of their discussion. Admiral Kethvar stood at the center podium, his blue skin pale with exhaustion. The Altarian had been fighting the Zephyrian Empire for 3 long years, and it showed in every line of his face. His uniform was clean, but his eyes were hollow. Behind him, a holographic display showed the current state of the galaxy, and it was not good news. Red zones spread across the outer rim like a disease. Each red area represented worlds that had fallen to the Zephyrians. Green zones showed allied territory, but they were shrinking every day. The pattern was clear and terrifying. Members of the council, Kethvar began, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. I bring news from the Kepler 442 system. Our forces there have been eliminated. A wave of worried sounds swept through the gathered aliens. Some species clicked their mandibles. Others hummed low notes of distress. The crystalline delegate actually dimmed his light in shock. How many ships did we lose? Asked Council Prime Zareth, her tentacles writhing with anxiety. All of them, Kethvar replied. 237 vessels. The Zephyrians lost 8 ships, 8 out of nearly 400. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the translation devices seemed to pause in disbelief. Kethvar continued his report, though each word seemed to cost him effort. Their bioships adapt to our weapons faster than we can modify them. Our plasma cannons work for maybe 10 minutes before their shields learn to absorb the energy. Our laser arrays last even less time. They turn our own weapons against us. Ambassador Veltar from Proxima Beta stood up slowly. The tall, thin alien had been quiet during most council sessions, but now he seemed ready to speak. His species was known for careful thinking and long-term planning. What about kinetic weapons? Veltar asked. Physical projectiles instead of energy beams? Kethvar shook his head sadly. We stopped using those technologies 800 years ago. Our manufacturing systems cannot produce them in useful numbers. Besides, kinetic weapons are slow and inefficient compared to energy systems. Slow weapons are still weapons, Veltar pointed out. The Zephyrians have never faced solid projectiles. Their shields are designed for energy absorption. Where would we get kinetic weapons? Asked the delegate from Centauri Prime. None of our species use them anymore. We would need to rebuild entire factories, retrain crews, redesign ships. It would take decades. Veltar was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. There is one species that still uses kinetic weapons as their primary armament. Every alien in the chamber turned to look at him. Some leaned forward in their chairs. Others activated their translation devices to make sure they heard correctly. You cannot mean... Council Prime Zareth began. The humans? Veltar said clearly. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Aliens jumped to their feet, shouting in dozens of languages. The translation system overloaded trying to keep up with all the voices. Absolutely not, shouted the Rigelian ambassador. Those creatures are barely civilized. They solve every problem with violence, added the delegate from Wolf 359. Have you seen their entertainment? Asked another voice from the crowd. They glorify warfare and destruction. Veltar waited for the noise to die down before speaking again. Yes, they are violent. Yes, they prefer warfare to diplomacy, but they are also incredibly effective at it. Kethvar looked interested despite himself. What do we know about human military capabilities? More than we like to admit, Veltar replied. Our intelligence services have been watching them for 50 years, ever since First Contact went badly. They have been fighting wars continuously for their entire recorded history. Their weapons technology is designed for one purpose: destroying other humans as efficiently as possible. The chamber grew quiet again. This was not the kind of discussion any of them wanted to have. Their ships use metal projectiles fired at extreme velocities. Veltar continued. They also employ nuclear weapons, chemical explosives, and electromagnetic pulse devices. Everything we consider primitive and barbaric. Primitive weapons against Zephyrian bioships? Asked Kethvar. It sounds like suicide. Maybe, Veltar agreed. But the Zephyrians have never faced anything like human weapons. Their bioships are designed to adapt to energy attacks. Physical projectiles might be completely outside their defensive capabilities. Council Prime Zareth looked around the chamber at her fellow delegates. She could see the fear in their faces, but also something else. Hope. Desperate hope that someone, anyone, might have an answer to their problem. The humans rejected our diplomatic overtures 25 years ago, she said. They made it clear they wanted nothing to do with galactic civilization. They called us weak and said we had forgotten how to fight properly. They were not entirely wrong, Kethvar admitted quietly. Even if we contact them, why would they help us? Asked the crystalline delegate. What could we offer them that they would want? Beltar had clearly thought about this. Territory. The humans are running out of space in their own solar system. They have over 12 billion people on their home world, and they are building colonies as fast as they can. We could offer them planets in exchange for military assistance. Give them worlds. The Rigelian ambassador sounded shocked. They would probably strip mine them and turn them into weapons factories. Better than letting the Zephyrians turn them into slave camps, Veltar replied. The debate continued for hours. Some delegates argued that contacting humans would be inviting another aggressive species into the galaxy. Others pointed out that aggressive species already existed, and they were called Zephyrians. Finally, Council Prime Zareth called for a vote. The motion was simple. Should they contact Earth and request military assistance against the Zephyrian Empire? The vote was close. 23 species voted yes, 20 voted no. It was barely enough to pass the motion. Very well, Zareth announced. We will send a message to Earth. May the cosmic powers help us all. The message was composed carefully by the Council's best diplomats. It explained the situation with the Zephyrians, detailed the military threat they posed, and offered territorial concessions in exchange for human military intervention. The message was sent through quantum relay to the Sol system. Everyone expected to wait weeks for a reply if one came at all. The response arrived in 6 hours. It was short, written in simple English with no diplomatic flourishes. Message received and understood. Human First Expeditionary Fleet is already en route to your coordinates. Admiral Jake Morrison commanding 50 vessels. We will handle your Zephyrian problem. Prepare suitable landing zones for our Marines once we clear the space lanes. Earth out. The council chamber erupted in surprised chatter. 50 ships seemed like a small force compared to the hundreds they had been losing. But it was something. More importantly, it was immediate action. Beltar sat back in his floating chair and wondered what they had just unleashed upon the galaxy. The humans were coming, and everyone was about to discover what 25 years of isolation had produced. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching the stars shift through hyperspace on the main screen. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. The bridge was cramped compared to alien ship designs, but every inch served a purpose. No wasted space, no decorative elements. Pure function. Drop to normal space in 30 seconds, announced Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from the navigation station. Her fingers danced across the control panel, making final adjustments to their exit vector. Morrison nodded and activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. We are about to enter hostile territory. This is our first engagement with alien forces. But remember your training. We know what we are doing. These Zephyrians have been bullying everyone else for 3 years. Time to show them what humans can do. The Liberty was the flagship of humanity's first expeditionary fleet, but it was not the largest ship. That honor belonged to the UES Washington, a massive battleship that carried enough firepower to level a small moon. Morrison preferred the Liberty because it was fast and maneuverable, perfect for coordinating fleet actions. 10 seconds to drop, Rodriguez called out. Morrison looked around his bridge crew. These were people he had trained with for years, ever since Earth's government decided to build a proper space navy. Commander Ben Clark at the tactical station was his oldest friend, a man who understood warfare better than anyone Morrison had ever met. Chief Engineer Lisa Park monitored ship systems from her station, ready to squeeze every bit of performance from the Liberty's engines. Communications Officer Kate Brooks kept track of messages from the other 49 ships in their formation. Drop in 3, 2, 1. Mark. The stars stopped moving and snapped into normal positions. Immediately, the bridge filled with activity as sensors came online and began scanning their surroundings. Contact, reported Rodriguez. Large battle in progress bearing 27 Mark IV. Multiple energy signatures, lots of debris. Morrison walked to the tactical display in the center of the bridge. The three-dimensional hologram showed the Kepler 442 system in detail. Near the fourth planet, a massive space battle was taking place. Hundreds of ships moved in complex patterns, firing energy beams at each other. "Analysis, Ben," Morrison ordered. Commander Clark studied the sensor data carefully. "The alien defenders are badly outnumbered. I count about 60 Allied ships against roughly 300 Zephyrian vessels. The Zephyrians are winning decisively. What about their technology?" Clark highlighted different parts of the battle on the display. "The Zephyrian ships are organic, grown rather than built. They use bioplasma weapons and adaptive shielding. Their ships can actually heal damage during combat. The Allied forces are using standard energy weapons, but the Zephyrian shields are adapting to them in real time." Morrison studied the battle patterns. The Zephyrian ships moved like living creatures, flowing around enemy formations and striking weak points with predatory precision. Their weapons created beautiful streams of coherent energy that carved through alien hulls like knives through paper. "Time to weapons range?" Morrison asked. "At current engagement distance, about 4 minutes for our main guns," Clark replied. "The aliens are fighting at much closer range than we normally prefer." That was the key difference between human and alien warfare. Other species had developed energy weapons that were most effective at short range, so they fought their battles almost within visual contact. Humans had perfected kinetic weapons that worked best at extreme distances. "Lisa, engineering status?" Morrison called to the chief engineer. "All systems green, Captain," Park replied. "Main guns are loaded and ready. Nuclear payload is armed and standing by. Engines are running at optimal efficiency." Morrison activated his command chair's communication system. "All ships, this is Morrison. Form up in attack formation Delta 7. We engage at maximum kinetic range. I want overlapping fields of fire on their command ships." The human fleet moved into position with mechanical precision. Unlike the flowing, organic movements of alien ships, human vessels moved in straight lines and sharp angles. Their formations looked mathematical, calculated for maximum firepower efficiency. Dr. Frank Miller, the fleet's xenobiologist, approached Morrison's command chair. "Captain, I have finished analyzing the intelligence data on Zephyrian physiology." "What did you find, Doc?" Miller activated a small display showing biological diagrams. "Their ships are essentially spaceborne organisms. They have nervous systems, circulatory systems, even primitive digestive organs for processing raw materials. This gives them incredible repair capabilities, but it also means they respond to threats like any living creature." "Meaning what exactly?" "Meaning they have instinctive responses that we can predict and exploit. When a living thing is threatened, it tries to get away from the source of danger. When it is hurt, it focuses on healing rather than fighting. We can use these biological imperatives against them." Morrison found this fascinating. Human ships were tools, machines designed for specific purposes. But these Zephyrian vessels were living beings with all the strengths and weaknesses that implied. "Anything else, Doc?" "Their neural pathways operate on bioelectrical impulses, similar to organic brain activity. Electromagnetic interference should disrupt their coordination significantly. Our nuclear warheads will create massive electromagnetic pulse effects that their nervous systems cannot handle." Morrison smiled grimly. Human nuclear weapons had been designed to destroy human cities, but they would work just as well against alien bioships. "Captain," Brooks called from the communication station, "I am receiving a message from the alien defenders. They are asking us to identify ourselves. Put them through." The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of an alien vessel. The creature speaking looked like a tall, blue-skinned humanoid with large eyes and no visible hair. Morrison recognized the species from the intelligence briefings. This was an Altarian. "Unknown vessels. This is Admiral Kethvar of the Galactic Alliance Defense Force. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." Morrison straightened in his command chair. "Admiral Kethvar, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth ship Liberty, commanding the 1st Expeditionary Fleet. We are here to resolve your Zephyrian problem." The alien admiral looked confused. "Earth, you are the humans. But your fleet is so small. We have been fighting with hundreds of ships and losing badly. Admiral, with respect, you have been fighting incorrectly. We will demonstrate proper technique. I suggest you withdraw your remaining ships to a safe distance." "But Captain Morrison, the Zephyrians have superior numbers and technology. Their bioships are nearly indestructible. How can 50 human ships succeed where hundreds of ours have failed?" Morrison looked at Commander Clark, who gave him a confident nod. Admiral, you are about to learn why humans have been fighting wars for 5,000 years and are still here to talk about it. The communication ended, and Morrison turned back to his crew. All stations, prepare for engagement. Ben, I want targeting solutions on their largest ships first. We take out their command structure before they know what hit them. Targeting solutions locked in, Captain. All ships report ready to fire. Morrison stood up and walked to the front of the bridge where he could see the distant battle through the main view screen. For 3 years, the Zephyrians had been terrorizing this galaxy, enslaving entire worlds with their advanced biotechnology. They had adapted to every weapon thrown at them and seemed unstoppable. But they had never faced weapons that were designed by a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of killing other members of their own kind. Human weapons were not advanced or elegant. They were brutal, efficient, and absolutely devastating. All ships, Morrison announced over the fleet communication channel. This is Admiral Morrison. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten human interests. Today we show them why humanity rules the Sol system completely and absolutely. Weapons free. Engage the enemy. 50 human warships opened fire simultaneously and the war changed forever. The human fleet hung in space like a wall of gray steel, 50 ships arranged in perfect formation. Each vessel was a masterpiece of human engineering, built for one purpose: winning wars as quickly and efficiently as possible. Captain Morrison studied the tactical display showing the ongoing battle between Zephyrian and Alliance forces. The alien ships moved in graceful curves, their biohulls pulsing with internal light as they fired streams of coherent plasma at each other. It was almost beautiful if you ignored the fact that thousands of beings were dying with each exchange. Range to target? Morrison asked. Commander Clark checked his instruments. 2 million kilometers and closing. Well within our optimal firing range, but the aliens are fighting at about 50,000 kilometers from each other. Morrison nodded. That was exactly what he had expected. Alien species had developed energy weapons that worked best at close range, so they fought their battles almost close enough to see each other without magnification. Humans had taken a different approach entirely. Chief Park, status on our main weapon systems? Engineer Park looked up from her station. All railguns are charged and ready, Captain. Tungsten penetrator rounds are loaded in all tubes. Nuclear warheads are armed and standing by for proximity detonation. Electromagnetic pulse generators are online. The railguns were humanity's primary space weapon. They used magnetic fields to accelerate solid projectiles to enormous speeds. A tungsten rod weighing just 10 kilograms could punch through almost anything when it was moving at 30% of light speed. The beauty of kinetic weapons was their simplicity. No complex energy systems to fail, no exotic particles to contain. Just solid matter moving very, very fast. Dr. Miller, final analysis on Zephyrian defensive capabilities? Morrison asked. The xenobiologist consulted his portable display. Their adaptive shielding is remarkable, Captain. It can absorb energy attacks and actually redirect that energy to strengthen the bioship systems. The more you shoot them with energy weapons, the stronger they become. But they have never encountered kinetic weapons? Correct. Their shields are biological membranes designed to interact with energy fields. Solid projectiles should pass right through without triggering any defensive response. It would be like trying to stop a bullet with a magnetic field. Morrison smiled. That was exactly what he wanted to hear. Navigator Rodriguez called out from her station. Captain, I am detecting communication signals between the Zephyrian ships. They are using bioelectrical impulses, similar to nerve transmissions in organic brains. Communications Officer Brooks had been monitoring those signals. I have been analyzing their communication patterns, Captain. They seem to operate with a hive mind structure. Individual ships report to cluster commanders who report to sector leaders, who report to the main command vessel. Can you identify their command ship? Morrison asked. Yes, sir. It is the largest bioship in the center of their formation, about 3 times the size of their standard vessels, with multiple organic antenna structures. Morrison studied the target on his display. The Zephyrian command ship was enormous, easily the size of a small city. Its biohull pulsed with patterns of light that probably represented communication signals being sent to the rest of the fleet. Ben, I want firing solutions on that command ship. If we can disrupt their coordination, the rest of their fleet should become confused and disorganized. Clark worked at his tactical station, calculating trajectories and timing. Solutions locked in, Captain. But, sir, at this range it will take our projectiles almost 30 seconds to reach the target. If they detect the incoming rounds, they might have time to evade. Will they detect tungsten rods moving at relativistic speeds? Morrison asked. Unknown, sir. Their sensors are designed to detect energy signatures. Solid projectiles might not register until impact. Morrison considered this. 30 seconds was a long time in a space battle. But the Zephyrians had no experience with weapons that took time to reach their targets. They were used to energy beams that traveled at light speed and hit instantly. All ships, this is Morrison, he announced over the fleet communication channel. Prepare for coordinated kinetic strike on primary target. Fire control computers are uploading targeting data now. We will fire all main guns simultaneously, followed by nuclear bombardment 30 seconds later. Throughout the human fleet, weapon systems came online. Massive railguns rotated to precise firing angles. Nuclear warheads were loaded into launch tubes. Crews that had trained for years in simulation were about to test their skills against real enemies for the first time. Tony, calculate our optimal firing position, Morrison ordered the navigator. Silva worked quickly at his station. Sir, recommend we maintain current position. The Zephyrians are focused on the Alliance defenders and have not detected our presence yet. From here we have clear shots at their entire formation. Morrison looked at the tactical display one more time. The Zephyrian fleet was arranged in a complex organic pattern, with smaller ships protecting larger ones in a formation that resembled a living organism. Their command ship sat in the protected center, directing the battle like a brain controlling a body. It was a good formation for energy warfare, where ships needed to support each other with overlapping defensive fields. But it was a terrible formation for defending against kinetic weapons that could punch through multiple targets in a straight line. Dr. Miller, what happens when their command ship is destroyed? Morrison asked. Based on their bioelectrical communication system, the loss of the central coordinating node should cause temporary paralysis throughout the fleet. Individual ships will revert to basic survival instincts rather than coordinated tactics. How long will that paralysis last? Unknown, Captain. Possibly several minutes while secondary command nodes attempt to establish new neural pathways. During that time, they will be extremely vulnerable. Morrison nodded. Several minutes would be more than enough time for the human fleet to destroy the entire Zephyrian force. Captain, Chief Park called out. All ships report ready to fire. Weapons are charged, targeting solutions are locked in, and crews are standing by. Morrison walked to the front of the bridge and looked out at the distant battle. For 3 years, these bioships had been unstoppable. They had conquered dozens of worlds and enslaved millions of beings. Their adaptive technology made them nearly invincible against conventional weapons, but they had made one crucial mistake. They had become over-specialized. Their entire defensive philosophy was based on fighting enemies who used energy weapons like themselves. They had forgotten that there were other ways to fight, older ways that human beings had never abandoned. Open a channel to Admiral Kethvar, Morrison ordered. The alien admiral appeared on the main screen, his blue face showing stress and exhaustion. Behind him, Morrison could see the chaos of his ship's bridge as they fought a losing battle. Admiral, this is Captain Morrison. I strongly recommend that you withdraw your remaining ships to a minimum safe distance of 500,000 kilometers. What you're about to see may be disturbing to civilized sensibilities. The alien looked confused. Captain Morrison, we appreciate your concern, but we cannot abandon our positions. Too many lives depend on our success here. Admiral, you have done everything you can with the tools available to you. Now let us do what we do best. Trust me on this. The communication ended and Morrison returned to his command chair. Around him, his crew waited for orders. These were people who had been born into a species that had been fighting wars since before recorded history. Violence was humanity's oldest profession, and they had become very, very good at it. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. In 10 seconds, we will demonstrate to the galaxy why human beings are the apex predators of known space. Countdown begins now. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire. 50 human warships fired at exactly the same moment. Unlike alien energy weapons that created brilliant beams of light, the human railguns made no visible flash. Their tungsten projectiles were invisible death racing through space at speeds that defied comprehension. Captain Morrison watched the tactical display as hundreds of kinetic rounds streaked toward the Zephyrian fleet. The projectiles were too small and too fast for normal sensors to track, appearing on the display only as calculated trajectory lines. In 30 seconds, those lines would intersect with bioships that had no idea death was coming. "Time to impact?" Morrison asked. 25 seconds, Commander Clark replied. "All rounds are on target. No deviation from projected paths." Morrison activated the fleet communication channel. "All ships prepare nuclear bombardment. Fire nuclear warheads 15 seconds after kinetic impact. Set for proximity detonation at 5 kilometers." The Zephyrian fleet continued their battle with the Alliance defenders, completely unaware of the approaching threat. Their bioships moved in flowing patterns, firing streams of plasma at the retreating alien vessels. Their adaptive shields glowed with absorbed energy, growing stronger with each enemy attack they deflected. 10 seconds to impact, Clark announced. Morrison found himself holding his breath. This was the moment that would determine whether human military doctrine could compete with advanced alien technology. Everything depended on the next few seconds. 5 seconds, 3, 2, 1, impact. The first tungsten round hit the Zephyrian command ship traveling at 90,000 kilometers per second. The biohull, designed to absorb and deflect energy attacks, offered no resistance to solid matter moving at such velocity. The projectile punched completely through the enormous vessel, creating a perfectly round hole from bow to stern. More tungsten rounds followed in rapid succession. The command ship's biohull erupted in dozens of places as kinetic penetrators tore through its organic structure. Internal fluids sprayed into space as the ship's circulatory system was destroyed. Throughout the Zephyrian formation, other bioships suffered similar fates. The human fleet had fired over 400 kinetic rounds, and every single one found its target. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before were suddenly venting atmosphere and organic fluids as their hulls were punctured by weapons they had no defense against. Direct hits on primary target, Rodriguez reported from her sensor station. The command ship is showing massive structural damage. Bioelectrical activity is dropping rapidly. The Zephyrian command ship tried to maintain its position, but its organic systems were failing. The creature ship's nervous system had been severed in multiple places, leaving it unable to coordinate its vital functions. Internal lighting flickered and died as the bioship entered its death throes. "Nuclear warheads away," Clark announced. 20 nuclear missiles launched from the human fleet, each one targeted at a different cluster of Zephyrian ships. The warheads were not designed for direct impact. Instead, they would detonate close enough to bathe their targets in radiation and electromagnetic interference. Morrison watched as the first nuclear detonation lit up space like a new star. The electromagnetic pulse washed over nearby bioships, disrupting their nervous systems and causing immediate paralysis. The creatures writhed in space as their bioelectrical coordination was scrambled by the electromagnetic interference. More nuclear explosions followed, each one creating expanding spheres of radiation and electromagnetic chaos. The Zephyrian fleet, which had moved with such grace and coordination just moments before, suddenly became a collection of twitching, helpless organisms floating in space. "Time elapsed since initial firing?" Morrison asked. 43 seconds, Captain," Clark replied. In less than a minute, the mighty Zephyrian armada had been reduced to wreckage and dying bioships. The human fleet had not taken a single hit or lost a single vessel. "Communication from the Zephyrian fleet," Brooks announced. "They are broadcasting on multiple frequencies. What are they saying?" Brooks consulted her translation computer. "It appears to be surrender signals, Captain. Multiple bioships are requesting immediate ceasefire and offering to withdraw from the system." Morrison looked at the tactical display. Of the 300 Zephyrian vessels that had entered the battle, only about 50 were still capable of movement. The rest were either destroyed outright or floating helplessly with damaged nervous systems. "Open a channel to the surviving Zephyrian ships," Morrison ordered. The main screen flickered and showed what appeared to be the bridge of a bioship. The creature speaking looked similar to the bioships themselves, organic, flowing, with multiple sensory organs clustered around a central nervous structure. "Human vessels," the creature said through the translation system. "We surrender. We did not know. We were not prepared. Please allow us to withdraw." Morrison stood up and walked to the front of the bridge. "You will withdraw immediately from all systems claimed by the Galactic Alliance. You will release all prisoners and return all stolen property. You will provide full compensation for damages caused during your invasion. Do you understand these terms? Yes, we understand, we agree. Please do not fire again. If any Zephyrian vessel is detected in Alliance space after today, we will consider it an act of war against humanity. We will respond accordingly. You have seen what our response looks like. The communication ended and Morrison turned to his crew. Around the bridge, human officers maintained their professional demeanor, but he could see the satisfaction in their eyes. They had just accomplished something that the entire Galactic Alliance had been unable to do for 3 years. Captain, Rodriguez called out, I am receiving a message from Admiral Kethvar. The alien admiral appeared on screen, his blue face showing complete amazement. Behind him, Morrison could see other aliens gathering around their communication station, all staring at the human captain with expressions of awe and disbelief. Captain Morrison, Kethvar began slowly, what we have just witnessed. Is this normal for human military operations? Morrison considered the question carefully. Admiral, this was actually a fairly minor engagement by human standards. We use standard weapons and basic tactics. Nothing experimental or advanced. But you destroyed an entire fleet in less than 1 minute. Yes, sir. Speed and overwhelming force are fundamental principles of human warfare. The goal is to end conflicts as quickly as possible with minimum casualties on both sides. Minimum casualties? Kethvar looked confused. You destroyed hundreds of ships. Admiral, those bioships were military targets engaged in active combat operations. By ending the battle quickly, we prevented thousands of additional deaths that would have occurred during a prolonged engagement. Morrison could see that the alien was struggling to understand human military philosophy. Other species seem to prefer long, drawn-out conflicts with elaborate rules and formal procedures. Humans had learned that the fastest way to peace was through decisive victory. Captain, the alien admiral said finally, on behalf of the Galactic Alliance, I want to thank you for your assistance. The Zephyrian threat has been neutralized. You are welcome, Admiral. We will remain in this system for 24 hours to ensure the Zephyrians complete their withdrawal. After that, we will return to Earth to report mission success. Will you be establishing diplomatic relations with the Alliance? Morrison paused. That decision was above his authority level, but he could provide a preliminary answer. Admiral, humanity is interested in peaceful coexistence with all civilized species. However, we require mutual respect and recognition of human territorial claims. If the Alliance is prepared to treat Earth as an equal partner, rather than a primitive curiosity, then yes, we are open to formal diplomatic relations. The communication ended, and Morrison returned to his command chair. Around him, his crew began the process of securing from battle stations and preparing damage assessment reports. Not that there was any damage to assess. The human fleet was completely intact. Captain, Chief Park called from her engineering station. All ships report 0 casualties and 0 damage. All weapon systems performed within normal parameters. We have sufficient ammunition for 12 more engagements of similar intensity. Morrison nodded with satisfaction. The engagement had been a complete success, but more importantly, it had demonstrated human military capabilities to the galactic community. The Zephyrians would spread word of this defeat throughout their empire, and other aggressive species would think twice before challenging human interests. The age of human expansion was about to begin. The aftermath of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours, every major civilization had received detailed reports of how 50 human ships had destroyed a Zephyrian armada in less than 1 minute. The reaction was immediate and profound. Captain Morrison stood in his ready room aboard the UES Liberty, reviewing diplomatic messages that were flooding in from across known space. Each message carried the same underlying tone: shock, awe, and a desperate desire to avoid becoming humanity's enemy. Commander Clark entered the room carrying a datapad filled with intelligence reports. Captain, our communications officer has been monitoring galactic news networks. The story is everywhere. Morrison looked up from his desk. What are they saying? The Altarians are calling it the most decisive military victory in recorded galactic history. The Centaurians want to know if humans are available as military advisors. The Regellians are asking about mutual defense treaties. What about the Zephyrians themselves? Clark consulted his datapad. Complete withdrawal from all contested systems. They are also broadcasting warnings to their allies about human military capabilities. Several Zephyrian colony worlds have declared independence and are requesting alliance protection. Morrison was not surprised. The Zephyrian Empire had been built on the perception of invincibility. Once that perception was shattered, their entire power structure became unstable. Other species that had been forced into submission were now reconsidering their positions. Any word from Earth? Morrison asked. Yes, sir. Admiral Peterson sends his congratulations and orders us to remain in the Kepler 442 system for diplomatic meetings. Ambassador Sarah Wilson is en route with a full diplomatic team. Morrison nodded. That made sense. The successful military intervention had opened doors that had been closed to humanity for decades. It was time for diplomats and politicians to do their work. A soft chime indicated an incoming communication. Brooks's voice came over the intercom. Captain Admiral Kethavar is requesting permission to come aboard. He has several other Alliance representatives with him. Grant permission and escort them to Conference Room 2, Morrison replied. 20 minutes later, Morrison entered the conference room to find 6 different alien species waiting for him. Admiral Kethavar was there, along with representatives from every major Alliance world. They all stood when he entered, which was interesting. Most alien species did not practice that particular courtesy. Admiral Kethavar, "Gentlemen, ladies," Morrison said, taking his seat at the head of the table. "Thank you for coming." Ambassador Veltar from Proxima Beta leaned forward in his chair. "Captain Morrison, we need to discuss the implications of what happened today. The Zephyrian defeat has created a power vacuum that could destabilize the entire galaxy." Morrison had expected this concern. "What kind of destabilization are you worried about?" The crystalline delegate answered, his mineral structure glowing with nervous energy. "Other aggressive species have been watching the Zephyrian expansion with interest. The hegemony of Vega, the consortium of Wolf 359, the Raiders of the Outer Rim, they have all been waiting to see if the Zephyrians could be stopped. And now they know the answer," added the representative from Centauri. "Prime. They also know that humanity possesses military capabilities, far beyond anything we have seen before." Admiral Kethavar spoke carefully. "Captain, we need to know human intentions. Are you planning to expand into former Zephyrian territory? Will you be claiming worlds by right of conquest?" Morrison had been thinking about this question since the battle ended. "Gentlemen, humanity's primary goal is security for our own people and peaceful trade relationships with civilized species. We are not interested in building an empire, but we will not tolerate threats to human interests." "What do you consider human interests?" asked Veltar. "Freedom of navigation for human vessels, fair trade agreements, access to raw materials we cannot obtain in our own system, and respect for human territorial claims." The aliens exchanged glances. This was apparently more reasonable than they had expected. "What about military cooperation?" asked the Centaurian representative. "Would humanity be willing to provide military assistance to Alliance members facing external threats?" Morrison considered this carefully. That would depend on the specific circumstances and the nature of the threat. Humanity does not involve itself in internal political disputes, but we are opposed to aggressive expansion and the enslavement of civilian populations. "Could you be more specific?" pressed Kethavar. "If another species launches unprovoked attacks against Alliance worlds, humanity would consider providing military assistance. If Alliance members start fighting each other over trade disputes or territorial boundaries, that is not our concern." Dr. Miller, who had been quietly observing the aliens throughout the meeting, activated a small recording device. As the fleet's xenobiologist, he was documenting this historic first diplomatic contact for future study. The crystalline delegate asked the question they were all thinking. "Captain, how many ships does humanity possess? Your fleet of 50 vessels defeated our strongest enemy. What would happen if you deployed your full military capability?" Morrison paused. This was classified information, but the question was reasonable given the circumstances. The first expeditionary fleet represents approximately 10% of human space-capable military assets. Earth maintains significant defensive reserves. The silence that followed was profound. If 50 ships represented only 10% of human military strength, then Earth possessed roughly 500 warships. That was more than the combined fleets of most Alliance species. 500 ships? Whispered the representative from Wolf 359. "Approximately," Morrison confirmed, "plus defensive installations, orbital platforms, and industrial facilities capable of rapid ship construction during wartime. Ambassador Veltar leaned back in his chair, his long frame seeming to collapse with relief. Captain, on behalf of the Galactic Alliance, I would like to formally invite humanity to join our organization as a full member with all rights and privileges. What would membership entail? Morrison asked. Mutual defense agreements, free trade within Alliance space, access to galactic communication networks, and participation in Alliance governance. In return, we would ask for security guarantees and military cooperation against external threats. Morrison stood up and walked to the conference room's viewport, looking out at the debris field that had once been a mighty alien fleet. The lesson was clear. Species that threatened galactic peace would face human military response. I will relay your offer to Earth's government, Morrison said finally. However, I can give you a preliminary answer. Humanity is willing to join the Alliance as an equal partner, not as a subordinate member. We will not accept restrictions on human expansion or limitations on our military capabilities. Of course, Kethvar said quickly. Full membership with equal status. There is one more condition, Morrison added. Any species that attacks Alliance members will face coordinated response from all Alliance military forces, including human forces. The galaxy needs to understand that aggression has consequences. The alien representatives exchanged more glances. They were essentially asking humanity to become the Alliance's military backbone, and Morrison was agreeing to do exactly that. Captain, Veltar said slowly, do you realize what you are proposing? You are suggesting that humanity become the dominant military power in this galaxy. Morrison turned back to face the assembled aliens. Gentlemen, humanity became the dominant military power in this galaxy about 43 seconds after we opened fire on the Zephyrian fleet. The question is whether we use that power to maintain peace and stability, or whether we let chaos fill the power vacuum. The meeting continued for several more hours, working out preliminary details of human alliance membership, trade agreements, territorial boundaries, military cooperation protocols, diplomatic procedures, all the complex details of interstellar politics. When the alien representatives finally returned to their ships, Morrison remained in the conference room with Dr. Miller. Doc, what is your assessment of their psychological state? Morrison asked. Miller consulted his notes. Fear, Captain. They are terrified of human military capabilities, but also enormously relieved that we appear to be reasonable and peaceful. They expected us to make territorial demands or impose tribute requirements, and instead we offered to help them maintain galactic stability. Exactly. From their perspective, they were expecting to trade one aggressive empire for another. Instead, they are getting a powerful ally who seems genuinely interested in peaceful coexistence. Morrison nodded thoughtfully. The key word there is seems, Doc. We need to make sure we live up to that expectation. As the UES Liberty prepared to return to Earth, Morrison composed his official report to Naval Command. The mission had been a complete success. The Zephyrian threat was eliminated, humanity had demonstrated its military capabilities, and the foundation had been laid for Alliance membership. But perhaps most importantly, humanity had announced its arrival on the galactic stage. No longer would they be dismissed as primitive warmongers from a backwater system. Earth was now a major power, and everyone in the galaxy knew it. The age of human expansion had begun, but it would be an expo.